Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to part 2 of me being an idiot and deciding to fly a Beechcraft Baron across the Atlantic. This part took about 2 hours to record and is from, let me have a look at leg 2 here, Ogdensburg International Airport in New York, USA, to Goose Bay, Newfoundland, Canada. This is one of the longer legs. I think the next leg is the longest. One of the next 2 legs are the longest, and then there were 2 fairly short legs afterwards. Got IFR clearance, so we're taxiing over to the runway, and you can see this is running slightly faster than the last one. I'm going to keep these videos to 30 minutes exactly, because I can, you know, times are just change how quickly it runs, depending on how long the flight actually is. So you can see me fiddling around with mixes and whatnot, or not mixes, prop pitch, just to try and slow down the taxi bit. You can also see that it's nighttime when we're taking off. It won't be nighttime when we land. I think this was like 2 in the morning in-game time in Ogdensburg, and it was, I think, a 4 or 5 hours flight, maybe even 6 hours to Goose Bay. So not the shortest flight in the world. I have been told, by the way, by Mr. Simulate that I could in fact get the nav function of the GPS working. I'm going to try that tonight and report back in tomorrow's video and see if that's any good. By the way, sorry for no stream yesterday. Yes. Haha. You thought I wasn't going to mention that. Sorry for no stream yesterday. I have been feeling a bit ill, so I figured it was in my best interest, and you guys' best interests, to not stream. So off we go on our beautiful flight. We got clearance. We're just heading on to heading now, and I think I screwed up the heading or something. Either that or we got a really weird heading almost immediately off the runway. And yeah, that was me realizing that I screwed up. Now this is an interesting thing. I screwed up in an interesting way there. You saw that I had to reset the altitude. That's because to initiate the altitude search for the hold in this Baron with the GPS that it has, I very interestingly have to actually set up or press the altitude to hold the altitude and then change the altitude that it holds. I can't say put in 10,000 feet and then say, okay, I want to go up to 10,000 feet, hold that altitude please. No, I've got to initiate a standard hold at whatever altitude I'm at. I'm going to start doing it on the ground more. I have started doing it on the ground more, I should say. And then bring it up to whatever I'm cleared up to. So 10,000, 5,000, 8,000, whatever it is. And it works that way. And with the heading hold, it's a lot easier because I can just say, okay, I want to hold heading 120. So this is the first international flight with the Beechcraft. And you can see that here's something interesting, because I've got and I'm gonna just cover this because you'll see it happening a few times during these videos, and I might as well cover it now. When you see the plane start wobbling after I've moved the 2 blue levers, that's because I've got prop sync turned on, and when I alter the pitch of the props, because I gotta do that with the mouse, I have to do it individually prop by prop, which means that the props go out of sync temporarily, and you'll see the plane kind of judder around for a little bit while the props resync. If you pay close attention to the RPM, which I think is the 2nd or 3rd gauge down, in the cluster of 8 or 9 or 10 on the right, in between the vertical speed indicator, the altitude indicator, and the GPS, you actually see one of those wavering as I guess the flight computer or something actually alters the RPM of that one engine to get the props back in sync, and it does that over a period of time because it missyncs quite a lot. So that's kind of interesting. And you know, we might only be 5 minutes into this flight, or 4 minutes 50 into this video, and we've got 25 minutes to go. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop silent now, and I'm going to return to you guys when we are on when we're cleared for final approach. So I will see you guys then, because there's always a lot of stuff to talk about in final approach. Takeoff, not really the most interesting. It's just a case of, you know, get up in the air and get onto course and you're good. Vectoring in ATC is always when it gets interesting, so I'll be back with you guys then. So I'm back, and as you can see, we've just been given our star vectors, and I've reduced the in-game time acceleration down to 1 times, and it's beautiful in daytime. I did tell you guys that we would not be landing at night. I kept my promise. So the vectors in here were pretty straightforward if memory serves. I'm trying to do this from memory because this flight was 4 or 5 days ago now. Most of the only flight that I really had issues with ATC and the way that it behaved was actually the last one. The last one was the worst. The 6th leg going to Waterford Airport. If you're wondering why I'm going to Waterford and not opening a new base in Airhauler, which is something you can do, it's because when I was getting type rated on the Baron, I didn't quite realise how you're supposed to land it. I wasn't really accustomed to the plane yet, and I kept crashing on the runway because I was so used to, taking out the throttle, and I've got my joystick on my desk because I'm going to be playing some Airhauler after this. I'm so used to, on final, pulling down the throttle from basically half, which is where I like to cruise, down to about a quarter or even less. I didn't realise when I was doing this that the Baron doesn't like you doing that when you're on full flaps, because the flaps in the Baron are... I think they're designed in such a way that the two engines actually push the air, because of the way the engines are mounted, push the air onto the flaps and actually increase lift that way. You're actually supposed to, really counterintuitively, as more flap goes in, you put more throttle in. So I've had some landings where I was landing with the throttle at 70, 80, 90% open, and it was just kind of cruising down at nice speed. It just made no sense to me, but that's how you're supposed to land the Beech. With the Comanche, which is what I was previously flying with, Piper Comanche, because that's a single engine at the front, I think, I'm not sure, this is the way that I'm thinking of it, and this is the way that it makes sense to me, and I'm probably wrong, but I'm going by my own logic here. I think because it's single engine, the flaps are designed slightly differently and maybe don't go down as much. So because there's less airflow as a direct result of the single engine as opposed to the dual engine, you can afford to pull out the throttle a bit more, and actually because the Comanche is a bit weird compared to pretty much everything else in FSX. I say that it's actually the way that A2A has their AccuSim set up in their AccuFeel, which is something I may well buy in the very near future for all planes. There's an add-on on Steam, AccuFeel for everything, that I'm really tempted to get because I like how AccuFeel behaves. But the thing about the Comanche is that I've landed multiple times with no throttle for the last 1,000 feet. If I were to try that in the Beechcraft, I'd basically need to start at about 8,000 or 9,000 feet, dump the throttle, and then come down about 4,000 feet a minute, which is a bit of a suicide dive in many ways, mainly in the way that it is literally suicide to do that, because you're going to crash the plane. And, oh yes, you can see at the bottom, the simulation paused flashing up. I got a bit distracted while I was doing this approach because there was a moth, and I had to kill it. Oh, okay, I've clearly killed it at this point. For those of you that aren't aware, I actually have a phobia of moths, and it's quite bad because whenever I see one, you might have seen me talking about the Blue Hand of Doom, which is my fly swatter. Yeah, that gets used quite frequently on moths, wherever I can get them. I think we've been given a descent, have we? At some point? We must have been, surely. Yeah, we're descending. Sorry, I'm watching on the really, really small preview on it. Can I make that any bigger? Be nice if I could... Oh, I can make it slightly bigger. Can I make it any... Ah, there we go. Now I can watch this video in a resolution that is like 6. Can I watch it in like half full resolution instead of quarter, please? Because then I might be... Oh, can I watch it in full resolution? Oh, I can. That's fantastic. By the way, I should bring this up. The black bar is the top and bottom. That's because I'm doing a window capture of just FSX, because when I'm doing these flights, because they're actually quite long in real life, even at 4 times time acceleration, I've got a habit of like watching videos and stuff. It's one of the reasons that there's no sound, is I'm on TeamSpeak when I record. I was on TeamSpeak when I recorded these, and I was watching YouTube videos and I think Pokemon on Twitch. Because of course I was, because I am a mature 27-year-old man. And I was actually going into Little Nav Map, which is a really good tool. It's freeware. If you play FSX and you're looking for a really good way of figuring out where exactly you're going to be going and having a look at airport procedures, Little Nav Map is really good. It's maybe not as good as SkyVector, but it is a really helpful, useful tool for just kind of getting a visualization of where your flight plan's going to take you, and kind of what the hazards on the ground will be in terms of mountains and whatnot, and how high they'll be. So that it's a really useful tool. You can also like generate flight plans based on like an altitude you want to reach, which is super useful. I've been using it a lot to generate 10,000 foot flight plans and a couple of 9,000 foot ones. Although sometimes it does reach you over 15,000 foot mountains within 18,000 foot minimum height, which, yeah, that caused problems in the Comanche. So there's the airport up ahead. You can see the poppy lights. You can see me dumping the speed almost immediately because I've just realized that we're actually a lot closer than I thought to the airport. Can you see me putting throttle? No, you can't see the throttle coming in, but I can guarantee you that I'm now at this point kind of holding it in, realizing we're going a bit slow, and a bit of throttle is added in. And was this the greaser by any chance? I know I had a greaser landing on one of these. I can't remember which leg it was. But something that I kind of neglected to mention, was this the greaser? I'll be able to tell from the way the letters look. No, landing was okay. I'm getting better at landing this. It's actually quite difficult to get down, I'll be honest. With the speed that you got, with the throttle you got to keep in, and the fact that it loves stalling. And for once I've remembered to actually set that into taxi mode. Twice I made the same mistake with the ATC there. I just realized I actually selected takeoff and landing twice. But now we just need to taxi over to the fuel, and Little Nav Map is what's guiding me. You'll see me making some quite drastic direction changes as I look over at Little Nav Map and realize that I'm kind of off course a bit, or well, off where the ideal center line for this taxiway is. And I'm not taxiing very fast. It looks very fast on the video because this is at basically 400% real time. It's at 300. So in Premiere it tells you a percentage instead of how fast it is, a percentage of real time. This is at 387.4% of real time, which is 3 times faster than normal, nearly 4 times. So while this is quite slow for me, or was quite slow for me, because I like a good slow taxi, it's safe, and you can stop pretty much instantly. It does look quite fast in the video, and you know, the little direction changes I was making look quite severe, and some of the severe ones look horrific. But we are taxiing over to fuel, and with that we are very, very nearly finished here. So I will leave you today by saying I have been RainbowDave. You've been watching some air hauler. It is technically air hauler in Flight Simulator X. Even though there's no air hauler windows, this is an air hauler transfer flight from Jenkins, Fremont, Ohio to Waterford, Ireland in multiple legs. This has been the end of leg 2. We've reached Canada. Next time is one of the long ones, because our next destination is, and I'm going to butcher this, Kangerlussuaq in Greenland. So next time we're off to Greenland, and yeah, that's going to be a fun one. Until then, stay safe, and goodbye.